Okay, you might get that recording in progress message. So welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for another in our series of Library Bites sessions. We're really happy to see everyone here. It's a smaller group, so I hope people are comfortable asking questions and breaking in as needed. Please do feel free to comment, turn your microphone on, participate in the chat. It's always great to have some interaction during this session. Thanks, Joanne. Nice to see you. Nice to see a friendly face. So let's get started. Can everyone see my screen okay? All right, great. So my name is Kim. I'm a librarian here based at the Rutherford Library, serving law, arts, the campus Saint-Jean, and education. So if I've met any of you before, that's great. Lovely to see you again. I'm going to start advancing my slides here. We talked about the fact that the session is being recorded. Also, I just to get started as a little bit of an icebreaker, I was curious if people could share in the chat what faculty or department Beth is not seeing the screen share. Let's do that again. Let's try that off again. Here we go. Repost that. Yeah, there you go, Beth. I think when I press the record button, sometimes that changes the setting. So hopefully that's up on your screen now, and thanks for the heads up. Okay, great. So can everyone see? I see Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry. That's great. And then secondly, what motivated you to attend, or what are you hoping to learn? So anything you can share on those two topics. SLIS alumnus, lovely to see some fellow library and information professionals there. It could be, you know, anything around, maybe you're working on a lit review. Maybe you're asked to include it as part of an assignment, some cited reference searching. Maybe you're just trying to understand the impact of a particular article or find more articles on a certain topic. Okay, education, want to know the proper way to cite non-scientific references. School of Public Health, great. Literature review for research thesis, makes sense. Faculty of Education, candidacy, yep, can be very useful for that. Yeah, I can see a connection with all of those things, and I'll try and highlight things as we're moving through too. Faculty of Arts, biography, new ways to find information. This is certainly one of those. New ways of finding information, education, earth and atmospheric science, theses, yep, great. Great, thanks for that. That's helpful. Okay. And feel free to share as we're moving forward too. Thank you for that. That helps me contextualize some of the stuff we'll be sharing today. So I'm going to move forward here in the presentation. So what we're going to talk about for cited references is how it can function as sort of a citation time machine. So this is, for those of you who might remember, an image of the DeLorean from the movies Back to the Future in the 80s. And really with the citation, we talk about moving backward and forwards in time. So this will carry you through in both directions. And we use citation searching in the library to, often we talk about using one relevant piece or publication. So it can be an article, but it could also be a book chapter or something else. The tools are becoming more advanced now and can actually deal with non-traditional sources as well, like paintings and songs, apparently. But using one relevant publication to locate others, most of the time we are talking about an article or a book chapter. And I think most of you are probably familiar with the going back in time concept. So exploring the list of references at the end of a publication or the bibliography. So to look at what the author read to inform their particular piece. So most of us have done the going back in time part. What I'm going to focus on is the going forward in time, the back to the future kind of piece. So really exploring other publications that cite the reference you're looking at. So we all know when we've had that real eureka moment, you come across something, an article or a book chapter that's really great, really on your topic, and you think, oh, I want more like this. So that's one thing you can do with cited reference searching. So finding other things. So why is it useful? As I was just sort of getting into this, you can follow the line of scholarly communication on a given topic over time. You can see if you're looking at who has cited that article, you can look at how it's being discussed or the topic is being discussed in scholarly communication. You can gauge the impact of a publication by looking at the citation count. There are certainly exceptions to this. Sometimes something is being discussed in a negative way. Sometimes it's simply being cited because maybe it's a foundational article, or perhaps it's a self-citation by an article. There's all sorts of reasons, but in general, it does give sometimes an indication of impact. You can also expand your search beyond those standard keyword searches that you've been doing. So you're not constrained by the keywords you've been using all along. You might find articles from other disciplines that you hadn't looked at before, just because it's a different way of searching and it's leading you to different types of sources than a keyword search might lead you to. So speaking of keyword searches, though, cited reference searching does not replace the keyword or subject search. They're complementary and they should sort of be done in tandem. So this type of search that we're going to go through today is not meant to replace that. It's something you would do in addition to, so as another process there. Because of course, that keyword search that you're performing in a database or a topic search is going to garner you lots of key evidence or resources for your research topic. Okay, so where can we find these citing articles? So in a couple places, you might encounter them in large multidisciplinary databases. So things like Academic Search Premier, you might have seen them in places like that. If you were searching, let's say from the advanced search screen of the library homepage. Have folks seen those before out in the wild, maybe? You can give me a thumbs up if you've encountered them. No, not at all. Oh, we're going to though. We're going to. Another place you might see them are subject-based databases. And by that, I mean things like Education Research Complete is an example of one. I do have a link here that I'm going to click on. Speaking of subject databases, this is a link to a guide by someone at the University of Prince Edward Island, and they have a really nice comprehensive list of different subject databases and how you can use cited reference searching within them. I won't be going through all these databases, but I just wanted to alert you to this guide, and I've linked to it later on in the presentation. I'll share these slides out, but it's got databases such as, America History and Life, there's Bio 1, there's some science ones, CINAHL. I saw someone mention they were here from nursing, so there's instructions around how to do that, the cited reference searching in CINAHL. Econ Lit, Education Research Complete for the ed grad students that are online with us this afternoon, etc. Lots and lots of database examples there. So that's a resource you can use for searching in those specific databases. So back there. So subject databases in the item record or the homepage of a book chapter or article, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And finally, in specialized databases, and this is what we'll spend a little bit more time on this afternoon. So there are tools that are specially configured for cited reference searching, and you might have heard of these. So the ones that are the most well-known are Scopus, Web of Science, and Google Scholar. Those are sort of your big three, although nowadays more and more databases are including that feature. Okay, so in terms of those large multidisciplinary databases, this is what something might look like if you encountered it. If you were doing a search, a keyword search or an authored search, and I will actually grab the live search link here in a second so we can look at what it actually looks like. So you can see here, time cited in this database 12. So what that's referring to is, of all the resources available, of all the journals or book chapters indexed in a particular database, in this database, which is Academic Search Premier, 12 sources cite the article Toward an Understanding of Transfusion-Related Acute Lung Injury. And Tim Caulfield from the U of A is one of the authors on that particular article. So I'm just going to come over here and escape out of that one. And we're just going to take a look. Hopefully this link will work for us here. Okay, so this is what the search looks like live if I was doing the search from the library database. So let's just say I'm doing a topic or keyword search and I'm going along and I see this link. So if I click on this link out of curiosity, I'm getting 12 articles that cite my first work. So that cite toward an understanding of transfusion-related acute lung injury. And so we've got those articles. I could go in now and read them, take a look at them, email them to myself. So, at this point, depending on what you're doing, depending on your purpose, that might be sufficient, right? It's a first indicator that a particular work, in this case, the article on acute lung injury, has been cited. It presents an opportunity to see what others have had to say about this work on the topic and to find other resources. So again, this might be sufficient depending on what you're doing. But I mentioned that wording in this database. So it means it's only showing the 12 that are available within this particular database. There might be more in different journal articles. And if you need to be more comprehensive, let's say for the example, someone said of doing a lit review for candidacy or a thesis, you need to be very, very comprehensive depending on your situation. That's where you might want to go a step further and check in some of those specialized tools that I referred to. But this is where you might see it that might just tweak your interest in a particular article when you come across that first link in a multidisciplinary, a large database like this one. Okay, the other example I wanted to show you is on what we call the item record. So sometimes when you do a search, like the one that I was just showing on the screen, you don't see a link to Time Cited. But if you click through to the article, so clicking through on the title of the article, you come to what we call the item record page, where sometimes you have, information about the abstract and all sorts of things, often the HTML, a PDF, full text. So in this case, we're in the Science Direct database, and I've clicked through on an article, and in my search results, I didn't have a link to the cited references, but when I click on this page, actually, I see the references, so that back in time, but I also see the cited by, and there's 158. So I was just showing you an example of another place where you might encounter them out in the wild without even looking for them. They're just there as part of your search in the database. So again, if I was to click through on that 158, I would see all the articles that cite that database. So once again, in this case, maybe I'll decide, okay, that's enough. But if I want to do that more comprehensive search, I'm going to move on to those specialized tools. And those are the ones we're going to walk through sort of in a more step-by-step process. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is the Scopus database. How many people, if you want to give me a thumbs up or a message in the chat, how many people have used Scopus before, the database? Okay, some hands up. Yeah, good. Do you like that one? Looking through the participant list here, reactions. Yeah, some thumbs up, good. I tend to like Scopus as it has pretty good coverage in the arts and humanities. Whereas Web of Science, the one we're going to look at afterwards, really has good coverage in the exact sciences. And they're both kind of complementary. There is some overlap. So first off, I'm going to go locate Scopus. So I'm going to go into Find Databases. I'm going to say Scopus. Okay, make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to click on my Scopus link. Okay, here we go. And for this one, let me look at my example here. I've got an example from arts, okay, just to make sure I acknowledge things from that area as well. Cited reference searching was originally known for in Web of Science, that particular tool, so people came to associate it with the sciences, but I want to make sure people understood that it's also available for arts and humanities sources as well. So Scopus, we're going to use this divided by the ballot box example, and I'm just going to copy that from my notes document here. I've got this open, and I can just simply pop the title in here. So let's say I was doing a search on women's suffrage or getting the vote during the war. So I've got an article that caught my eye, and I want to know, has anyone else cited this article? Okay, moving forward. In the particular database where I found this article originally, there wasn't any indication. Okay, sometimes you won't see any indication where you found it in that subject database. So this one comes out of a database called Historical Abstracts. So I want to now check one of these specialized tools to see, okay, has anyone cited this? I can also include, if I want, the author's last name, especially if the title is at all generic. So I'll pop that in here and I'll change this one to authors. Okay, and I will search. All right, so in this case, I have close this and I'll make this a little bigger. Hopefully everyone can see it. I have two results, and the reason for that is what we call citation variance. So when things are coming in from different databases, sometimes something has been miscited somewhere else or something is slightly different. So the database is trying to be as comprehensive as possible, and it's showing you all variations. It's saying, okay, I found these two that look a little bit alike, but there's something slightly different. And in this case, you can see there's only other articles associated with one. So that's the one I'm going to pick. If there was, let's say, one that was associated with this other one, the other variant, I can select that one too to be comprehensive. But in this case, I see 15 right here. So I'm just going to click through. And now I can see the 15 documents that have cited my article divided by the ballot box, the Montreal Council of Women in the 1917 election, which comes from a journal called Canadian Historical Review. Okay. And I've got all of my results here. And the great thing about this now is I see not only other journal articles that have cited it, but I'm seeing things like book chapters and things that are coming out of the Oxford Handbook of Gender and War, etc. So it's really starting to open up a little bit more beyond journal articles citing other journal articles. So that's great news for those of us in the arts and humanities. So I could click on the Get It button to go access the full text of any of these articles. I can email, export the references to myself, and as a way of discovering other items on my topic. There's also in these specialized tools, lots of really interesting advanced filters. So you can see I could limit by year if I wanted to see who was talking about this article in a particular year. The subject areas, which we'll see in the next example, can be quite diverse. I could look at what countries the people are discussing them in, languages. In this case, it's Canadian articles, so we do have some in French and English. The other thing that's interesting in this particular database in Scopus is that I can click on the author's name to get a bit of an overview of them as a researcher. So I could see, okay, maybe I'm interested in this person's writing and their other research. I can get a bit more information about them, what all is being cited. I can look at some of their other documents, and again, who else is discussing them. So the number of citations, we've got this one, Cold War Comforts, Canadian Women, Child Safety and Global Insecurity, and 30 citations to that one. So lots and lots of information there, and lots of advanced functionality there. You can go in and see who they're cited by, all kinds of other things there and topics. So lots of advanced functionality within Scopus. And just that has provided us with a jumping off point to discover other things on a similar topic. So I'm going to close out of Scopus. Okay, moving on to the next one. We want to get down to Web of Science. So how many people have used Web of Science before? Can I get some thumbs up? Yep, some thumbs up. Great. Okay. So as I mentioned, this one is definitely known for having more coverage journal-wise or source-wise in the exact sciences, and it's a very deep archive. Web of Science is known for going very far back in terms of their journal coverage. So we're going to go in and pick that database again. So I went to the databases page from the library homepage. Now I'm going to type in Web of Science. Okay, I'm going to select all databases. Okay, I'm just going to say accept all. In this case, you actually see a cited reference panel. And I'm going to put in the author's name. We're going to follow this example on the screen. We're going to take our Tim Caulfield article. Remember, we said we wanted to go a little bit further. So I'm going to say Caulfield T, and I can make that a capital. I don't think that actually affects the results. Make a little asterisk. And in the cited work here, we're looking for the journal title actually. And in this particular journal title was called Transfusion. If it's a longer title, you can look it up to find the abbreviation. Some of the scientific journals, the names, as you are probably well aware of, are very, very long. So there is an alphabetical list there to look up an abbreviation if it's a very long name. I did look up this one, and for the sake of time, I'll just let you know that it's actually, because it's so short, transfusion is just transfusion. So I will search that now. Okay, so here is our article, and you can see right off the bat that now we have way more because we're in a specialized search. Before, I don't know how many people remember, but we had seen 12 initially. So you can see by going into the specialized tool, it definitely ramps up your amount of results. So now we have all the results. They've eliminated some due to what they call preprint citations. So an article that is already in progress that hasn't been published yet. So that's being automatically filtered out. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. You've got, again, lots and lots of filters here, which are great in terms of, okay, I want to see which of these papers maybe are highly cited. That might be something to look at. Open access, publication years, if you want to see, when there was the most activity around that particular article, document types, database, research areas. This is the one I was telling you about, where you can see a lot of variation across disciplines. So it's not just hematology, but other areas as well. The mesh subject headings, different authors that they might collaborate with, so many others, funding agencies, languages, affiliations, research domains. You can also analyze the results to see all kinds of fun graphs if you were talking about it. So again, just a visual representation of how many, let's try a bar chart. So the different disciplines that are citing it. So again, hematology is number one, but it's closely followed by several others, which are interesting to look at. View the records, just another visual representation of that. And if I'm keeping a watch on the time, as we're coming up on the last 5 minutes, so I want to move on to some of the other tools. But that just gives you, I think, a pretty good idea of how many more cited references you can access in these specialized tools. So that's Web of Science. The last one that I'll talk about briefly is Google Scholar. And I'm thinking maybe some of you have probably already used Google Scholar for cited reference searching, and that is something you can use as well. I'm going to take my example of divided by the ballot box with Google Scholar and show you that one. It's essentially what you see here on the screen, though. You just have to do a search and you'll get that cited by 29. The thing with Google Scholar, though, to keep in mind, I guess, is that you can't get a list of publications. So, and you obviously don't have those advanced search filters or citation analysis or any of those kinds of things affiliated with the author. So it is good in terms of getting lots of hits and comprehensiveness, but in the case of the other two tools, Web of Science and Scopus, you can actually access a list of the publications that they indexed. With Google Scholar, you can't. So they're not transparent in that sense. But it is another tool at your disposal, especially for getting a sense of how frequently something has been cited. And I think that one is pretty straightforward. So I'll skip directly down to Google Books you might not have seen for citation purposes. So if I access Google Books and try that particular search there, the syntax is the author's name, and then it quotes the book name, the book title. So here we have McLeod, All True Things, A History of the University of Alberta. So I'm going to replicate that one. So we'll go here, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. And I think it's McLeod. Alberta. Hopefully I've spelled that correctly. Let me take a quick look at my example. Okay. And then now we will see inside the book where it has been cited in other books. Okay. So that's maybe a tool that I think people might not be aware of, and just another interesting way to search, especially in areas where the primary form of publication is books rather than journal articles. So it's just another sort of tool at your disposal there. Popping quickly back into the slideshow for our last 5 minutes here. People might be wondering, okay, we just looked at quite a few tools here. Which one of these should I use? And I would say it depends, again, on the context of your research need, how comprehensive you need to be. The multidisciplinary subject databases might be okay, depending on what you need. If you're just looking for more like this, just looking for more articles, the specialized databases make for more comprehensive search. You've seen those filters, that advanced functionality, just sort of the tip of the iceberg. It's easier to exclude certain results in those tools like Web of Science and Scopus. So, for example, excluding self-citations is one thing you can do in there, or you can filter by a research area. I will go back here. I have some further resources there for you. I've got an article on database comparisons, those three, if you want to take a look. Got some general guides on cited reference searching from these two universities, which are great. And I'll mention this one again, specifically the UPEI one, because it does actually provide instructions for different subject-based databases, which might be of interest to you in some of your different disciplines as you're using them. So that would be great too. And there's two more, a summary, a kind of what we went through quickly here for Web of Science, as well as Scopus, if you want to review that. And I would also recommend, if you want to dive a little deeper into research impact and citations and all those kind of bibliometric type things, there is a guide on research impact from the UVA libraries, as well as a whole research impact team that you can contact and meet with to find out about services in that area. As well as there's two more upcoming Library Bites sessions, one on journal citations specifically, and one on Web of Science, the database, where they spend the whole half an hour in Web of Science. They might touch on cited reference searching, but it's the database as a whole. So really focusing on that particular tool. And the link here to all the library workshops is also available from the homepage here under Library Workshops. So if you look for those Library Bites sessions that are coming up, I'm just scrolling down, we've got those two here for journal citation reports, as well as Web of Science. So the whole half an hour on that database. So recognizing that we're coming up with 2 minutes to spare, any questions or comments about what we've looked at in terms of tools for cited reference searching? And I can pause the recording. People just let me know in the chat if you would prefer that I pause the recording while we are asking questions. Has anyone, and comments are welcomed as well. Has anyone used any of these tools or done any cited reference searching before? And feel free to share in the chat too. I will make the recording available. I can send out the link to all session attendees. You're welcome. Oh, great. Just seeing Joanne's comment, just saw Google Books and did some searching. Yeah, that's great. Google Scholar, thank you, Kim. Yes, that's a good point. So most of those specialized tools I just demonstrated, Web of Science and Scopus, as well as Google Scholar, have an option to set up an alert. So you get an email when an article of interest happens or is published rather, as will most databases when you're even doing a keyword search, when you go into the advanced search functionality. So that's a great point as well. You can set up an alert. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I'm going to stop the recording, but please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions, comments. Please keep attending these Library Bites sessions. You'll be getting a link to a feedback form shortly within the next couple of days. So please do feel free to provide feedback. And that includes any suggestions for any Library Bites sessions. Hopefully these are nice little short snippets. And if you need further information, the links to those further resources are in the slides, which will also be shared out as well as the recording. But always, feel free to get in touch and ask us. And have a great rest of your afternoon.